Good afternoon, everybody. සුබ සන්ධ්‍යාවක්. අද අපි ජූනි මාසේ 4 වෙනිදා ඉරිදා සාකච්ඡාව කරන්නේ. So it's very important. Today we're going to talk about a plant-based economy for Sri Lanka, and this is going to be presented by Dr. Lal Jayasinghe. Now, before that, I just want to go back why I selected this topic and also why it's important for us to talk. So, now, I picked up this article, A Plant-Based Economy, written by Dr. Lal Jayasinghe about a couple of months ago. And then I wrote to him saying whether he can speak about his experiences. Now, today is the common leading economics and so on may not really agree this is a way forward for the current problem, but that's not the way we should look at it. So I decided to take it further and ask him to come and do a talk today, which he's agreed, and I'm very happy about it. Now, we are in a real challenging times in Sri Lanka. I'll give a little bit of glimpse into this. Now, when you have a challenging time, nurturing means helping, or without creative thinking in challenging time is very important. So, I mean, we had COVID, which was a real challenging time 3 years ago. And I was in a developing country during that time, although I traveled up and down. And see what they did, say, kind of innovations they did. And say, the people who were making cars decided they will make ventilators because there was a huge deficiency of ventilators. And they started innovating online, everything else. Then to remote areas, medications for older people and so on couldn't be delivered. And people proposed we should use drones. And then it started happening. Then treatment-wise, there were no absolute options. So every day you were looking at blood tests and everything else, everybody else's experiences, sharing experiences and so on. And a group of doctors used very old drug, dexamethasone, in a proper manner, and found that was useful if you used it in a correct dose in the initial phases. That's good. So we started somewhere. So then we had food deficiencies, markets and everything. I know the healthcare staff, when they went to buy food from the supermarkets, there wasn't any food. Everybody else had stocked them at home and there were no food deliveries. And then these things were rationed. So people could not buy, and the people who were working in essential services, healthcare, fire, etc., they got 1 hour in the morning to go shopping, and the others were not allowed. So you need the ID to go in there. Then there was innovation in relation to family survival, sharing various things, and also food banks, etc., whatever they can do did. Then obviously to prevent the spread of the disease, there was a need for contact trace. And then people came out with different ideas how to do contact tracing. And they still wanted to make everyone's privacy when they're doing that. So they came out with computer systems, which took some time, but it did. Vaccinations usually take 5 years to develop. Now here, you can't wait 5 years. You had to find innovative technologies to produce vaccinations, and they did that. And then keeping healthcare safe. You can't keep healthcare stuff. I mean, I know one time we had 700 odd patients positive, COVID patients in our hospital at that time. So if the healthcare staff were not coming to work, then how can this healthcare carry on? So what they did was they opened the schools so that the healthcare staff workers, children can attend. Others were given online so that they maintain all the needs for spacing, social distancing, everything else, and somehow got the work to happen so that essential services were maintained. Then some staff had no jobs at all because they did not. So how can they survive without any incomes? So people do a furlough scheme, which means everyone got 80% of their salary, whether they went to work or not. So kind of that. So innovation is so important when you have a challenging time. Now, Sri Lanka is in a hugely challenging time. So why? Because the economy became bankrupt about 1.5 years ago and led to huge inflation and deficiencies. Fuel, electricity was a major problem, even still it's a problem to some extent. Malnutrition, because the children had no food and then children had to be fed one way or the other, and various things about malnutrition we talked about. Transport was an issue because there was no fuel, no transport. How can people go work and do their normal income jobs? Healthcare issues, no medicine, no staff, no issue of various issues cropped up. Then education problems had children did not go to school. They lost their education and then they had to be looked after at home. And political issues were there, huge amount of political issues, including leadership problems. And then also violence erupted as a result, but that doesn't bring any solutions to anything. So we have corruption rampant as well on top of all this. And then so we have a hugely challenging situation. And because of that, we really need innovative thinking. And that's why this kind of activity is important. Now, in addition to that, we have a brain drain as well. So we are in a challenging time. We can overcome that if you discuss it properly. So that's why Dr. Lal Jayasinghe idea is a good one, because it's maybe an innovative thinking process. He's a retired public health doctor, 40 years of experience in Sri Lanka and the United Kingdom. And his experience in converting small holdings of tea, coconut, and cinnamon to wide varieties of other organic crops, etc. So we're trying to share his experience. Welcome, Dr. Jayasinghe. So I'll stop sharing there, and I'll let you share.
Anyway, thank you, Chula, for letting me have, talk about my, I don't know what to call, my concept. All right. What I sent out was basically what I mean by a plant-based economy. But what I want to do now is, because I don't think I can add very much to what I already sent, but I would like to talk about why we need a system change. That's what I thought I will do first. And hopefully we can have a discussion after that about what my concept of a plant-based economy is doable or not, that sort of thing. So here goes. Now,
can I interrupt? Can I interrupt?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I actually record this, and so it's made openly available to anybody to see it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's independently available. So they may, the people who are seeing it may not have the document you sent it. So you'll have to talk. So you'll have to talk a little bit about all your concepts in here, so that it will independently explain everything. Yeah. Okay. Let's start.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I understand.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Anyway, so as I say, there are two parts to this. One is that we need a system change, and the system change that I think we need is based on a plant-based economy. Now, the economy itself is not the system. Actually, economy is part of the system. The system is much bigger than the economy, but it's a major part of the system. And if we did change the economy, the system will change with it. Or we can change the system through the economy. That's the concept I have. So, as I said, I would like to talk why I think we need a system change. So, what we must not forget is the legacy of colonization that we have all inherited. We can't forget that. I mean, our history or colonial history has shaped everything that is at present, good or bad. So a lot of people, actually, the population should be divided into people who think it was a blessing or boon that we had the British rulers for some time, and the others who think it was a disaster and all our problems are because of the British. So I won't take sides, but I think there are some issues that we can, talk about. Now, the system that we have including the economy, is not our system. It's not something that we develop independently or because that's the way that's best for us. It was introduced by the colonizers. And obviously they had a different agenda, didn't they? I mean, they were not really interested in Sri Lanka as a country, but they were interested in Sri Lanka as one of their colonies. So that's the track they used, whatever they did. So the economy was based on plantations, tea and rubber and coconut to some extent, and then was also export oriented, and it was monetized. When I say export oriented, because that's how they function. They grew tea and rubber and exported it, and then with the money they imported everything else, including food. And something that was new to Sri Lanka was the introduction of money, or how money was being used for things that were not, money was not used for earlier. So those are some of the fundamental things that happened because of colonization. Then the government or governance was also something that it suited them, because it was a colonial government, wasn't it? So they basically had, they were the rulers and we were the subjects, basically. So they had a very centralized system so that they could keep good control over what's going on in the country and didn't have to give too much of freedom unnecessarily. So it was very centralized and was top down. So I'm saying all these things because these are things that we can't forget. When we try to change our system now, we have to remember how we arrived at this present situation. The third thing that happened was the administration, just similar to governance, because it again was centralized and was command and control. They had various administrators at different levels, starting with this, I think the was called the permanent secretary or something like that, the minister secretary, and then went down from the district people and then up to DRO and people like that. So it was very like an army situation. Everybody above had a power over the one somewhere below. Then, what did all this happen? What the consequences of this system? It must have had some consequences to our system as Sri Lankan as a country. What it did was inequity, wasn't it? I mean, there were some people who were well off and did well in the economic system, but there were others who, the vast majority, were not. Actually, there were sort of two. I mean, I lived through some of this. I think some of you may have also lived through this prior to independence and soon after independence, where there are two kinds of people, who were urban and who were educated and who were in government or jobs or in the private sector or in the estates. Then there were the vast majority of people who were mostly in the villages and they had a different sort of life. Then also, because the plantations, they did a lot of damage to our natural resources. For example, deforestation, one of the biggest damages the colonizers did, didn't they? They cut down all our forests to grow coffee and tea and things like that. And in the process, there was pollution and loss of biodiversity, and that sort of thing happened. That's one of the consequences of the colonizers. Then, I think it didn't happen immediately, but the present situation of ill health is caused by the harm done to the environment, both social and environment and physical. The physical environment was mostly due to, I think, destruction of the forest and things like that, and there was floods and droughts and that sort of thing happened, and there was a lot of food, and there were the food that died, the different kinds of food were lost, and they were confined to few items of food. That sort of thing happened. And then there was, I think, inequality caused a lot of ill health. Most people were not are happy in their day-to-day life. So that sort of thing all led to ill health, and it took a long time. But I think the present day, the problem that we have can be traced to all these things that happened over a number of years, maybe tens of years or even nearly 100 years. But these are all consequences of what happened to colonization. And also, the vast majority of people had, poor livelihood because they had no resources, because there was land was being, controlled by a few people, and a lot of people had no land, so therefore they had no land to grow food or other cash crops. The cash crops are all crops are all going estates rather than small holding by little people, by village people. Now, what I say is that we can change all that, not only the economy, but the whole system. But if we introduce a plant-based economy, now when I say a plant-based economy, as I said before, the economy is going to be plant-based, but the system has to change along with the economy. It will change because of the PBE, or as a necessity for a PBE, we'll have to change the system. So it goes both ways. We have to change the system to introduce a plant-based economy, and also we'll have to, and the introduction of a plant-based economy will also change the system. Now, what are the benefits I see in a plant-based system economy? It will be the wealth will be created and enjoyed by all. I think I'm sorry, people who have not read my paper will find this mystifying. But what I mean is that basis of my plant-based economy is that all people will be growing stuff. So that's why it's plant-based. They'll be all growing stuff. That doesn't mean that they will not be doing anything else, that they'll be all farmers or something like that. But whatever else they may be doing, they'll also be growing. Because of that, a lot of people, instead of a few people who enjoy the benefits of plantations or tea plantations or rubber plantations, all the people who work in the plantation will be the owners of those things and will be growing the stuff, and they'll be enjoying whatever they grow. In addition, people who are not usually engaged in growing will be, for example, doctors, for example, or lawyers or teachers or administrators will be growing stuff either for their consumption, and mostly for their consumption. If they have anything extra or if they grow something else that can be, sold, then they benefit from that as well. At least they will grow their own food. Then the environment will be protected. There won't be any poisoning and contamination and things like that, because growing will be on an organic method and also in small scale. So there will be destruction of the environment because we are all small scale. Then the health will be restored because they will be all living in the countryside rather than in cities. I don't think there will be any need for Colombo actually, as it is today. I'm not saying that Colombo will have to disappear or anything, but what happens nowadays when you go to Colombo is you begin to wonder what is going on in here, what's happening, why is there all these people running around, and what is it doing? Are they doing any good for the country at all? I doubt it. So anyway, there will be a need for that. I don't think there will be people be doing that sort of running around in a PBE. And we will try to make sure that the basic needs such as food, housing, and work will be provided in a PBE. Right now, I think also mm, because because of what has happened, I don't think we get another opportunity like today to change the system, whether into a plant-based economy or anything else. This will be the ideal opportunity that we'll ever have to change the system. I'll tell you why. Because there's a crisis, and as Chula was explaining earlier, there's a crisis now, and that crisis is risen because our system has not worked. The system has failed. That's why we are in a crisis. Then people also are demanding change. They are all asking for change, system change, aren't they? Everybody asks for system change. They don't know exactly what they want by saying system change, but they want something different from what's been going on. And this will be a good opportunity, not only change the system, but also bring power down to communities. Because at the moment, as Chula was saying, there's corruption, and the corruption is there because of concentration of power. So if we move, or if we try and have a system where the power is close to the communities, there will be much less opportunity for corruption. Right. Anyway, that's all what I am going to say about this need for a system change. But as Chula explained, I'll have to say something about what I mean by plant-based economy, so that people who have not read my paper will understand what I mean. Now, the reason why I say we need a plant, that we should have a plant-based economy is the only resources, or the resources that we have abundant, are natural resources like sunlight, um, uh, fresh air, clean water, good soil, good plant material, useful plant materials, and intelligent human resources. Those are things that we have actually, and we don't have to go looking for them anywhere else. We don't have to import them. They are all here, and they are also here in abundance and free of charge and belonging to everybody. So when you say a plant-based economy, we must combine all those resources that we have and develop or prosper as a country. Now, I'll tell you that at the moment, we might think that we don't have a plant-based economy, but actually we do, to some extent. Because now if you think of our export earning, for example, is from tea and rubber and some extent coconut and spices. Now, aren't they all plant-based? They are. But there's a difference, because in the plant-based economy that I'm suggesting, we all handle in very small scale and family scale, not big estates. The estate, the plantation that we have, people might say, oh, we already have plant-based economy because we have plantation, but those are outdated. I mean, plantations are not fit for the 21st century. I mean, there are things that the British or other Europeans introduced in America when they're using slaves, or what are called, they were actually called plantations, although we call them estates here. I mean, we would have had the same thing here if the British had come 100 years earlier when there was slavery. But by the time they came here, slavery was abolished, so they couldn't have slaves, but they had, I mean, they imported labor from India, and I won't call them slaves, but then they were not treated very well, were they? Now, we don't have to carry on with that system now, do we? So we should try and do things on a small scale, not and that's another problem with estates and plantations. They are industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture is the reason why we need all the pesticides and fertilizers which leads to all the bad effects of ill health and things like that. But if we grow small on a small scale, on a family scale, we can do it organically. Not only can we do it organically, we can produce all the fertilizer or the compost that we need on site, so we don't have to import. Now, that is the basis of what I mean by a plant-based economy. And if we are going to do a plant-based economy, people have to have land. So we'll have to divide the estate, won't we? We'll have to give it to the workers, and they will have to run them on as a family basis. And on a small scale, maybe a hectare or less. I think immediately we can see when somebody works to a boss or employer, you work in one way, and if you work for yourself, you work in a different way. This is proven by the success of the tea smallholder. I think that is the model we should aim for. A tea smallholder has a good life if he is not lazy, because unfortunately, of course, he has to spend a lot of time on the land, but I don't think they mind. And I have my experiences that they lead a fairly good life, because they are not. State doesn't recognize that. In fact, the way they treat it is quite shoddy. People in the remote areas who are growing tea have to carry uh, the green leaf to the nearest place where there is some transport or things like that. And some of the middleman also takes a cut, whereas I don't know why, but there are a lot of money spent on roads in Colombo, whereas the rural roads are neglected. How does that help the economy? I can't understand. Whereas if you did build good roads, the remote areas where people grow stuff, then it will definitely benefit the economy. Anyway, that is the one aspect. That's the main aspect of what meant by plant-based economy. The other aspect is that it shouldn't be left only to the people who are growing either tea, rubber, spices, or things like that to grow stuff. I think we should all grow stuff. And the thing that we can grow, anybody, any professional even, is fruit and vegetables on a small scale in their home garden. In order to do all that, of course, people have to move out to the country. You can't do that from Colombo. You can't do that in apartments. And also, I mean, the present system has given rise to a situation where people are living in apartments or houses in Colombo with 6 perches. Why is that? The whole country is open. Why is the reason why we are staying in all these cities? How does that help the economy? These are the reasons why I'm saying that we should have a plant-based economy and a system change at the same time. And if you do, if all the professionals were to move out of Colombo, and there's no reason why they shouldn't, because for example, take doctors. The people who are ill are not from Colombo. All of them are not Colombo. And imagine, for example, the example I give is the Children's Hospital in Boraya. That's supposed to be the biggest children's hospital in Southeast Asia. Why is that? I mean, somebody, a child falling in Trincomalee has to come to Colombo. Why is that? I mean, why have we spent all that money building huge buildings in Colombo, whereas we could have several of them outside in the provinces? That way we help people. The problem is the system is such that it has favored certain types of people. And the people that the system has favored are the importers and exporters. I don't know whether I'm straying away from my subject, but a good example is now we get so many cereals and pulses in Sri Lanka. But what do we eat? We do eat dal. That's the one thing that doesn't grow in Sri Lanka. But it helps a lot. You know, a lot of people who do import the dal are benefited by that. That's an example of what I'm saying, that the present system is not designed for the benefit of the people. But a plant-based economy where the people actually contribute to the economy by growing stuff will benefit the people who are, we should make sure that a system such like that is designed such a way that the people who do actually grow the stuff benefit. Now you take tea now. Now the people who grow the tea in estates, do you think it's fair the amount of the share of whatever we export or what we earn goes to anywhere near what they have contributed by growing it? So that's not right. So we should change all that. So we should. So as I said, there are two aspects. One is that people all should get together and grow either cash crops or cash crops and food. And people have wrong ideas of food, which is a different subject altogether. I don't want to talk about that. But anyway, I don't think I want to talk a lot more than this. So I think I will leave it at that and, open it for discussion if anybody wants to make a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lal. I think you have highlighted some important issues that needs a lot of discussion. There's very good positive points like, unity, trying to reduce imports, then being self-sufficient at least in the individual scale as much as you can, and so on. So there are some good points as well. But let's ask from the audience if they have any questions. Any questions there? Any comments? Anything? Okay. Anybody ask? Okay, I will put a question. Okay. Now equality is something that you wanted to promote. Now, when you qualified, you got a degree, yeah, you qualified. You had batchmates. Remember all your batchmates, yeah?
Yeah.
They had equal qualifications when they qualified, more or less equal age. 20 years later, if you compare them, were they equal?
Yeah, no, maybe, how do you mean? Well, nobody is equal 20 years. There's difference in equal in what
Exactly.
sense? Except
in anything, were they equal?
Yeah. No.
See, so there are lots of other factors that operates in relation to why you can't get equality that easily. And the two other things, it's important to learn from the history, but two things that I want to mention. One thing is British or whoever who goes and sits in another country, whether it's the past or present, they don't come for your friendship. They want something from you. That's why they come to another country. So that's true. But in 1948, when we got independence, our country was not in debt at all. There was a surplus of money. We had a surplus of money in our country. Now, 75 years later, 75 years, it was not the British who ruled, it was local people. And we are completely bankrupt, and our debt is above that of our earnings as GDP. So it's such a big change. It's not because what happened before 1948. It's because whatever that was done after 1948. I'll give a different way of example. Say, for example, take the end of World War II, Japan, okay? It was flattened by the nuclear bombs and everything. Came down to ruins. Germany lost the war. There was nothing. But then they become world first-class economies within 75 years. Now they both are excellent economies, well-managed economies within the 75 years. So we can't be just, blaming the past for the current situation. The current situation is partly because of ourselves as well. So we need to correct ourselves. That's what I'm trying to say. So, Lakshman, you have raised your hand. Yes. Lakshman.
Yeah. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Very kind of radical suggestions. I have a few questions from Lal. I'm Lakshman Disanayaka, speaking from Kandy, Sri Lanka.
Yes, Lakshman.
I'm a physicist, so a layman in agriculture. Right. Your idea is very, very radical in a way, very controversial, but it's a very challenging thing. We need this kind of ideas for a system change from different fields. Now, I have a few questions.
Yes.
So you are suggesting a country without cities, without urban population, right?
I won't say that. I mean, the sense, as I said somewhere, there is no reason why we should not have cities, but the city should not be. You know what has happened in Colombo and Sri Lanka is the rural population earn money, stuff for the country, and the urban population spend it. I mean, if you are honest, isn't that what happens? Colombo spends what the other people earn.
Yeah, but urban people also contribute. I mean, they contribute to the industry.
I know. They contribute in some respect, so they can continue to contribute. If they are contributing, sure, let them contribute. They have to contribute. I mean, we are not going to, destroy the system or something like that. Another thing I must tell you, I think I should, as a qualifying thing is this one. What I'm suggesting will be a disaster if we do it overnight, very quickly. That's one thing. And also it will be a disaster if we do it without the mandate of the people, right? Those two things are fundamental. If we have to change it, we must get the people, engage the people in discussion, in this kind of talk and conversation. And if the majority agree there, that is a good thing, then we can change the system. Otherwise, you can't change it from top. That will be decided. It will be like Cambodia. We don't want to do that.
To convince us, can you quote an example from the world where such exist?
No, I can't. In fact, I'll tell you another thing, that Sri Lanka is unique in that respect, because Sri Lanka has no resources other than the ones that I mentioned. We don't have anything. I mean, we should use our labor to make garment for the world. That would be the wrong way to do things. Or we should not even manufacture stuff. If we have to import the raw material to do that, that will be exporting our labor. We don't want to do that. But we have resources, the ones that I mentioned, which is air, sunlight, water, manpower, soil, and they are there in abundance. And we don't have to get anywhere. We just only have to organize ourselves so that we produce stuff with that. And there are people who are willing to either buy it from us, or we can produce our own food, and there are no problem. And of course, the first thing that people say, oh, nobody will buy stuff from Sri Lanka if we don't import stuff. Sure, we need to import stuff. We can never grow things like electronics or machinery. We can't grow them. We have to import them. And we can't live without them, can we? I mean, you can't live without refrigerators or washing machines or anything like that, or equipment in hospitals or drugs. I mean, we do have to import them. But we don't have to import them by selling our labor, either locally or in the Middle East, to buy that. That is the wrong way of doing it. We can produce our own stuff that other people might be able to want to buy from us. So that's why.
So your model is something like what we had during ancient kings' days, right?
Yeah. In a way, I'm not saying that we should go back to the past.
No, not fast. It's not a time problem. I'm talking about the.
Definitely. And I mean, if you take, for example, during the time when the Portuguese or Dutch were here, right? And they surrounded the country, didn't they? I mean, only the hill country was independent. The rest of the ruled by them, and those people were practically isolated. But they managed to survive because in fact they could grow their own food. And the thing that they didn't have was salt, I think. Anything else they wanted, they could produce themselves. But of course, we don't want to do that now. We want to live a better life, so we should engage the rest of the world. But the stuff that we have, the resources that we have are the ones that I mentioned. And we don't have anything else either.
So according to you, probably maybe 80% of the Sri Lankan population will be farming and making their own.
Yeah.
Right? That's a model. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lakshan, for that. How about Ranjan has raised the hand. Just before Ranjan, I'll just give one statistic to Dr. Lal. Dr. Lal, you know the income tax, okay? So the income tax is the income for the country that people pay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know that 99% of the income tax that the government gets is getting from Western province. So the government is spending all that money to all the other 8 districts remaining, not just Western province. So I thought I'll let you know. Yeah, Ranjan. Yes, Ranjan.
Thank you. Now, when at the start of independence, our first Prime Minister, his dream was to make Sri Lanka self-sufficient in rice. His focus was on rice, and he wanted to make Sri Lanka self-sufficient in rice. 74 years later, we are still not very sure that we are on a comfortable footing. Sometimes there are slightest disturbance of the order, normal order, we have to import. We have to import rice. Now this is after 74 years of trying. I compare this, how is it that some other countries are able to produce a surplus? They produce enough food to eat for their own people, and they also produce sufficient to export and earn money also. You see, Australia, America, India, at the start of independence, which was about the same time as Sri Lanka received independence, there was starvation in India. There was starvation. And, Indians used to come to Sri Lanka illegally through the northwestern coast Mannar, that coastline, illegally. And Sri Lanka had to deploy our armed forces to catch these illicit immigrants. Every single Indian caught coming this way, but they said they are coming because they are starving. They came to Sri Lanka for a plate of rice. You see, so that was the level of starvation in India. Today, India is self-sufficient in food. See, why is it that we in Sri Lanka have failed to produce our own food? When I'm talking of Sri Lanka, I'm only talking of just one product, rice. Whereas those other countries, Australia, America, and so on, it's not only wheat, which is their staple food, but so many other foodstuff. See, at the very beginning of our independence, I think you and I are old enough to remember this. what our leaders said was that we are backward, we could not develop because of these colonial masters. They exploited our wealth and enriched their countries, Portuguese, the Dutch, the British. And we said, give us self-rule to govern ourselves, and we can bring back a golden era. Where is the golden era after 74 years? We are bankrupt now. And we are still dependent on food, and our money has no value at all. You see, the printing machine is overheated. What is the cause for this failure? Yes.
Do you want me to answer that? Chula, shall I talk or what?
Yeah. It's a thought-provoking process.
I mean, Ranjan raised 2 points. One is that India, Australia, America produce such a lot of food that we export. I think that, of course, it's not fair to compare India, Australia, or America with course little Sri Lanka, is it? I mean, you can't, not the same scale, right? That's the first thing. I don't think we should dwell too much on that. I mean, they grow so much of rice in some place that they have to use planes to spread the, or fertilizer or whatever it is. So that's the scale they grow stuff. Naturally, they do on an industrial scale. So therefore, they can export stuff. But we don't want to do that. And that's the wrong way to grow food anyway, because that's the wrong kind of food that we produce by doing that. So we will not talk about that. About the other thing, what happened after independence and still after 72 years, we have not achieved what they want to do with, when you are self-governing, is exactly the very point I'm saying, because we did not reset our economy to suit our country. We carried on as we, it was like, there was no difference. We carried on as only the faces, the white faces are replaced by brown faces. That's all. We had some kind of change in 56 and 62, I think, or 72. And other than that, there are very little. And this is what I'm saying. This is the time we should realize what we got wrong, and we should reset the system. Reset the system on a plant-based economy. That's the way. The other thing Ranjan was talking earlier about, that also I should say something about. Was it you, Chula, who said about 80% of the income tax is paid by the West?
99% of the income.
99%. Now, how did the Western province earn that? Where did they get? Did they produce anything useful? How did they get that money to give it as income tax? What did they produce? You can't make money out of thin air. This is what the problem is, that it has got so monetarized. There are people who use money to make more money, and that carries on. And then the poor people who have to buy food with money which they can't print, they have to suffer. The money should be only printed. There are two things with money. I'm no economist, so I can't tell, but I can see as common sense that there are two things with money that we should be careful of. One, it should not be based on the dollar. That is one thing. The value of the rupee should not be based on the dollar. That's one thing. And the other thing is, nobody other than the central bank should be allowed to print money, which is not the case now. All the financial institutions are printing money hand over fist. No wonder there is inflation, and there are people in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is not a poor country. You just take the hit that newspaper and see the advertisement, to go on holiday to Italy and things like that, and the cars that they sell. So how did the people get that kind of money? Where did that come from? Who earned that? Who produced enough stuff to get that kind of money? As I say, Western province, I mean, money is true that it's just a matter of rolling it up, and that's all they do. So you just give it as income tax and then collect it back. In any way, so all these things have to change with the system change, and not only the growing the way we grow, but all that sort of should change.
Ranjan, you raised the hand, Ranjan. Yeah.
Yes, Lal, you mentioned. Thank you, Lal. You said that I made a wrong comparison. I'm not very sure whether I can agree with you because, you know, uh, I'm going by the arguments put forward for self-rule in 1948 by our then leaders. They put the blame for all our economic problems on British colonial exploitation. Okay, having got the freedom, you see, we fail. Whereas India, you know, which is hundreds of thousands times bigger, which had a much bigger problem, have solved their problem. India, one example. Another example, Vietnam. Vietnam went through a horrendous war. Vietnam. See, what is our war was nothing compared to the war that Vietnam went through, right? Vietnam is exporting rice to us also. How do you account for this? Then I'll give another example. You said that India is big and America is big and Australia is big and we are small. Okay, look at Russia. Russia, you see, when Marxism failed in Russia, Marxism came forward in Russia as an alternative, claiming to be better than capitalism. How did it end up? How did it end up? With capitalism feeding Marxism. You see, ultimately, when communism collapsed in Russia, you will recall that America and Canada had to send wheat to Russia to prevent starvation in Russia. That is the extent to which that system, the socialist system, collapsed. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, there are some still bigoted people who still want to revive socialism in Sri Lanka and restart even after we are bankrupt, even after we are bankrupt. It's tragic. Over.
All right. Any
Okay,
other?
can I say
Yeah.
something, Chula?
Yeah.
about that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, Ranjan, I'm not talking about capitalism and socialism because I'm not suggesting that we have socialism or I mean, socialism is actually, to be honest, it's actually a branch of capitalism because it involves money, you know, except that the state controls the money or the what's the means of production is owned by something like that. I'm not talking about socialism. Sorry, Ranjan, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. And also about if good luck for India, Vietnam having solved their problem. But then we have had 73 years, we have not solved the problem. And if we carry on doing like how we are doing now, or do it better, but follow the same system, there is no guarantee we are going to win at the end. That's why I'm saying we need a system change. Not only I, a lot of people are saying that we need a system change. People are not saying let's improve the system or let's get better people to run it or something like that. They say change the system because it's the system that has changed, that has not worked. So we should change the system. And I recognize some resources that we have, I think we can use to advantage to solve our problems. But in order to do that, some people will have to, unfortunately, maybe lose some, comfort. But actually, I think a person who love living in a flat, high-rise flat in Colombo should, if he were to, move to a countryside and live in a big house, the large garden with birds singing and things like that, I don't think it's a bad thing for him to have done that. I think his quality of life should improve. So there's no reason why we should do that. immediately they might think they have lost something, but at least their children will be gaining something.
But two other facts that I want to put. One is, the population in Australia is, I think, 21 billion, and we have 22. So we are not that small, but they are a developed country. We are not. And Belgium is a developed country which has got only 10 billion population. So, but they are a developed country. So the size doesn't really matter. And if I take Ukraine has got 44 million population. And they produced before the war 80% of the wheat that the whole world needed. That was their productivity. So there are lots of other factors that influence the outcome and the productivity.
Anyway, this the way we produce food in Ukraine and the way we produce in Sri Lanka are quite different, aren't they? I mean, we use small plots of land, and the people actually who produce the food live in that land, and that the growing the stuff is part of their lives. I mean, that is the Sri Lankan system that we have had. We should try and boost that. That's my argument. We should boost it and grow at the same time. Everybody should grow at the same time, not trickle down economics, where some people may get rich, and because they are rich, they're paying income tax, and therefore the other people benefit. No, that's not the way. That I don't know what that is, socialism or what. But anyway, that's the way I think we should do now. We should forget about all isms and socialism and capitalism and things like that. And capitalism is wrong because that's based on money, and money is something that people actually, they print it in some respect. I mean, the whole economics is based on money, if you think about it, and it's based on not only money, it's based on debt. So when you say debt, it is some people who are debtors. I mean, some people who borrow, and there are some people who lend, and the people who lend are always an advantage when there's a debt system going on. So we should anyway, whatever it is now, we have tried this kind of thing for a long time with different actors for 73 years, but it can't work, Ranjan. So what do you suggest, Ranjan? How do we get out of this? Have you got any other system change that might work?
Thank you, Lal, for asking me that question. I will just say it in almost one or two sentences. You remember what Deng Xiaoping said when he turned communism on its head? What did he say? A cat, it does not matter, even if it is made of clay, so long as it catches mice. You see, we got caught up far too much in theories, far too much, various socialism, capitalism, all kinds of isms. You see, you will recall that under Dudley Senanayake, when he became Prime Minister, Philip Gunawardena was accommodated in his cabinet. And his pet subject was the Paddylands Act, which he wanted to move. And he thought that will bring about the change and increase productivity. So Dudley Senanayake allowed him. Paddylands Act was passed, and I think it's still, I don't know what's happening now, but I think it's still in force. Where is the productivity? Where I spoke about, I touched on socialism also because our economics has got thoroughly mixed up with all kinds of isms. You see, if we had a practical man like Deng Xiaoping at the top, you see, it does not matter if the cat is made of clay. If the fellow catches mice, that is what matters. You see, why can't we get such a practical man to be our president right now? You see, be our president. You see, without getting trapped for 74 years in all kinds of isms. It's long. It's a long and short of that.
Okay, Ranjan, that was a good comment. This actually brings into the word of pragmatism. That's what we need in Sri Lanka. We had to be pragmatic. We had to be meritocratic. That means you place to people who can do the job and then be honest. If we can do that, we will probably get somewhere. Anyway, it was a good discussion. Anybody else who wants to make any comments? Yes, Kapila. Kapila, yeah. Kapila? Kapila, you raised the hand. You are still muted.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just thinking why India developed, why if you look at Vietnam, with all kinds of problems they developed. If you look at China, if you look at Japan, they devastated. Even if you look at Germany, they were all devastated with war. India with its own problems. Now, when India got its independence, they fought for it. Vietnam, they fought for it. I mean, there is an amount of patriotism in all people. So they identify themselves as Vietnamese or Indians or Japanese or Chinese. Now, in our case, we can't even identify ourselves. We are still not Sri Lankans. We are fighting with each other in terms of, we never had leaders who actually motivated the people to become Sri Lankans. You see, that is where our problem is. And I was thinking to myself, I mean, earlier I remember when you were going out, they ask you religion, they ask you a race. So already people had been divided, and as a result, we could not collectively think like any other country that has developed. And I think part of our problem is that still, I think that problem is there in this country. And we are sort of still having problems with the majority community. Muslims are on the other side, and religions are also sort of creating problems so that people cannot take a united stand. I think these are some of the problems we have. 74 years we have gone through this, and that is one of the reasons why. The second thing is, I think when British gave us, okay, we had surplus, fine. But what did we do with that surplus? If you remember, Ranjan, he gave Katukambi subsidy, two measures of rice free of charge. And are these things conducive to any people to become productive? We actually made a beggar mentality in this country, and still we are promoting the beggar mentality. So these, I think, if we can get our people out of that, I call it yachaka mansika, making elite I think we will get somewhere. The problem is these people are still, large majority of people are having this beggar mentality so that they would build on something. I know if you look at Mahapada scholarship in universities, people who do not deserve that scholarship, they are taking the money. You see? So there is this uneven distribution of wealth as well as the lack of patriotism in this country, which our leaders could never get together. I think is partly contributed to this whole thing. And I think one of the things we need to have this, I think Aragale did good things for us. They made social harmony, they made religious harmony, and unfortunately, it could not continue for good reasons because the leaders did not want it and they made sure that it will break off. You see, whenever people see that it is to their disadvantage, they will disrupt it. And this is exactly what happened to Aragale. Today, how many people are in the Aragale? Very silent. They have been threatened and sort of, how do I call it, intimidated not to take part in, how do I call it, collective action. You think we can get anywhere with all that? I mean, that's just added to what you were discussing.
Yeah, so those are problems. සිංහලෙන් කියනවනම් අපේ mentality එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ දැන් එක්කෝ හිඟමනේ කියන්නේ මේ පාරේ හිඟමනේ නෙවෙයි. පිටරටින් ඉල්ල ගන්නවා, එක්කෝ donations ඉල්ල ගන්නවා, මොකක් හරි හිඟමනවා. ඒක නැත්තම් හොරකම කියන්නේ මේ පොඩියට ගිහලා පාංගෙඩියක් හොරකම් කරන එක නෙවෙයි corruption. So if think ඔය දෙක තමයි වැඩිපුරම led by politicians. That's the issue. So, Dr. Lal, we have discussed this issue for quite some time now, and there are lots of videos in our website that shows all those discussions. And it's good that you bring a new thinking into it, because then that will help us to see what areas that needs to be tackled to change the system, because it's a very complex system. You can't just change overnight. You have to approach exactly what changes we want in the system slowly. So that's how we can achieve something. Yes, Ranjan. Ranjan, yeah, you raised the hand, Ranjan.
Thank you, Chula. You mentioned corruption. You know, when you mentioned corruption, I just remembered that the action against corruption started sometime during the time of Mrs. Bandaranaike's government. 6 MPs, action was taken against 6 MPs for corruption. One of them I remember is MP Soisa, MP for Ratgam. Other is, I think it was Munnakulam from Kurunag. Another Karyappa from the east. Marika from Kaduganna. There is another person, I forget his name. What is the terrible thing they did? Corruption. As I remember, one person in the case of MP Soisa, he had taken a sewing machine. And it was considered a serious matter, and he lost his parliamentary seat. See where corruption stands today. We have not been able to halt the march of corruption from a sewing machine to the extent of bankrupting a country. Something radically wrong with our systems. Something radically wrong with our systems. Then there's another example of Daniel, A.Y. Daniel, MP for Haverhatter. He too was removed from parliament by Jayasinghe, I think. See the march of corruption. We have not been able to check it. And to the extent, the corruption has crippled the country. A system change is a must. The people who are responsible, accountable for this corruption, if they are also going to be the reformers, it will never happen. No, it will never happen. We are violating one of the fundamental principles of management. More than government, I will not say fundamental principles of government, fundamental principles of any management. Even a business or anything, accountability. You know, these politicians are simply not accountable. Look at this MP who brought some $7.5 million worth of gold. He got away scot-free, you know. He went away laughing. You know, just 7.5 million. What is that? Peanuts. You see, this system simply will not rescue Sri Lanka. The system change has to come if we are thinking of a new, if you are thinking of changing this situation for the better. You see, there Sri Lanka will be in pieces. I can see that if we don't change this system, I'll be bold enough to tell you one part will be taken over by India and the other part will be taken over by China. That is where we are going to end up. You see, India and China are not going to kill each other for Sri Lanka. They are not so foolish. They will say, let us share this country between the two of us, and they'll live happily ever after. The Singalas are utter modeas. See, absolute donkeys. They don't know what is good even for themselves. I'm sorry to say this. All of us are Singalayas. I'm telling this straight. Okay, thank you.
Ranjan, I think, okay, Kapila.
You want
I
me to
think,
say something?
yeah, I mean, we can conclude shortly if you want to.
In fact, what Rajan said, I would like to add, because I think a large majority of our people uh, are sort of, how do I call it? I mean, they are, although we say we are literate, literacy alone does not mean intelligence. You see? So when you look at most of these people, and they will forget within 2 weeks, as Prabhakaran said, memory is only 2 weeks, all these hardships will be forgotten and they will go back to the square one and elect the same people. And that's what has been happening over the last 74 years. Now, how do we change this mental setup of the ordinary people? That is where the crux of the problem is. I mean, you can have the best manager at the top, but if you cannot change these people and their mental set and the attitudes, I don't think we can get anywhere, even with the best manager at the top.
Dr. Lal,
I was
any,
Yeah. Can I say
any
something too?
yeah,
Can I?
conclude, yeah.
I think, Ranjan made a very strong point for a system change, didn't he? I mean, he just said that the system must change. The present day corrupt politicians and all those people are the product of the system. It's not, when you have a particular system, a particular type of person will rise to the top. So one of the biggest problems with our system is the centralization of power. Because of the centralization of power, the corruption at a very high level, it's a big scale, on a large scale. So one of the things that I suggest if you have a plant-based system is that we distribute power so that people, any individual have very little power. If the power go to the people, and then it will gradually go up from the bottom up, so that the people at the right at the top will have very little power other than to make laws. That, I mean, there are a lot of things that I need to say about the system change, including the PBE, but I could add all those things in the paper. But as I say, it is not only the economy that is going to change, but the whole system based on that economy. That is one thing. The other thing I want to say is, what is it that when people suggest that we should, all this, China has done well, Vietnam has done well, all those things, what resources do those countries have, and what resources do we have? And if we are going to become Belgium or something like that, as you mentioned, how do we do it? Are we going to let, what they say, foreign direct investment or something, and people get, all the rich countries come and start factories, and we just work for them? That's basically what it means. We will work for them and sell our labor. At the moment, that's all we do. We sell our labor either locally or in the Middle East. That's all we do. I mean, we have to use our own resources and rise ourselves the way we can, and that is best suited for the country. Not because somebody has done China. You can't compare what China has done. Sorry, Ranjan, but that is not possible. So we have to use what resources we have and do it such a way that everybody benefits, and directly, not tomorrow, because people, we have made a lot of money and our GDP has gone up, and therefore we have enough money to give it to the people as what, Samurdhi or something. That is wrong. I mean, Samurdhi is not going to, that's the wrong way to go about it. And people are not proud to be the recipient of Samurdhi. Everybody is equal. They should be given a chance to, do their bit and succeed by enterprise. So as I say, I'm sorry I can't all put in one sort of session, but I have in mind.
Okay. Thank you, Rao. Thank you so much, Dr. Lal, for triggering so much discussion today. And that is what we are doing, but we want to try to do system change or contribute to it. If we can identify what they are, we are getting there slowly, identifying what area needs change. So if you have a method or some kind of proposal to a particular system change, how to achieve that system change. For example, how can we retain all our people who are going abroad or something like that, then please do so and then come and discuss that in the future. If you want to learn what we're doing, it's on our website. But I'll be summarizing maybe in 2-3 weeks what we have achieved so far. So and also in relation to agriculture, I did a workshop 2 weeks ago in Mavanella, and we understand a lot of problems the agriculture people have and why they can't produce food in the way they want. So it's another profession. It's not just a simple, growing. It's more than that. And then Kapila is here, who is here, is actually a professor in agriculture. So they understand all the issues that are around. So the situation is quite complex, but that is why we need to target solutions in every corner. So eventually the system change will happen. You see what I mean? So it's like, you like Toyotas are good cars, not because one person develops it. It's because there are so many people looking at every corner, how to change the system so that eventually you get a better Toyota. So that is the kind of concept that we are doing. So we are discussing, continuing here. And you had very diverse community today listening. And thank you so much, Dr. La. Can I conclude?
Thank you, Jila.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for all. Yeah, so we'll meet up again next week. Thank you.
Sudha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chola.
Thank you.